Hey class, Mr. Costa here. Today we're looking at colonial economy. How did the colonists make money? How did they survive? How did they take advantage of where they were living? Let's start off with the New England colonies, the northeast part of the country. The soil there was not very good. It was extremely rocky. It was cold. It was wet. It was difficult to farm year round. So they had to find other ways to make money. So what did they do? They took advantage of what they had, and that was a lot of great seaports. So they fished, they whaled, they built ships. Actually, by 1776, they had built 1/3 of all of the British ships. They were pumping these things out, a lot of fishing, taking advantage again of what they had in their region, in their area. We have the middle colonies. They had a few things going for them as well. First of all, they had great navigable rivers that people could travel on. That was really helpful for trade reasons. They also had some really good soil. It was rich, it was thick. They grew things like corn and oats and barley and wheat and did a lot of farming in the middle colonies. Obviously, there were no tractors at this time. They also had a lot of good lumber. So you had people who we call coopers. Coopers are barrel makers. So they made a lot of barrels there. They also made a lot of stagecoaches, a wide variety of interests in the middle colonies. And one of the most popular things was fur trapping. And so they used these traps to catch furs, catch animals to sell the furs, and they made a lot of money that way. But a wide variety of things came from them, and again, they were greatly impacted by their geography, and they put it to work for them. The third section, of course, the southern colonies. And the southern colonies had the best soil of all. They grew crops like corn and wheat, but as you know, their real money crops, their cash crops, were things like tobacco, pictured down here in the corner, tobacco, rice, and indigo. This is where the money was being made. Tobacco was pretty difficult to grow and hurt the soil. It was still the leading cash crop in 3 of the states, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina. During the off season, they would grow indigo. But I will point out, those crops made the most money. However, the biggest cash crop was corn. Don't forget that. Not biggest cash crop, but most important crop to their survival was corn. Important stuff. They also had a few port cities. The ports were important, places like Charleston, South Carolina, so they could grow those products and then ship them to other parts of the world. It was essential in order to help out the economy. And these really big farms that were mass producing products were called plantations. And these plantations were owned by one family, and they would have had thousands and thousands of acres, and unfortunately, they relied on slave labor to be successful. So again, the 3 regions were greatly impacted by their geography and their landscape. And they took advantage of what they had, and it really added to their distinctiveness as groups. Now, I mentioned to you that we had a lot of other ways to make money going on. But the reality is, across all 3 areas, all 3 regions, the vast majority of colonists were farmers. Nearly 90% were farmers. And we call them subsistent farmers. A subsistent farmer was a farmer who grew just enough for his own family's survival. They had just enough crops, just enough livestock to provide for their families. The plantations in the South were mass producing goods that would be sold to other people. But most colonists couldn't afford large amounts of land. They couldn't afford shops. Instead, they could afford a small farm, and they were able to grow enough for their own family's survival. And then one more note about the middle I want to point out is the middle colonies had a nickname when it came to their economy especially, and they were called the bread colonies. Why the bread colonies? Because they grew all of the products necessary for bread: corn, oats, barley, and wheat. So, next time you have a loaf of bread, think about the middle colonies and what it takes for a successful loaf. Have a good one.